Leslie, hello, welcome, ready and waiting. Well done, well done. Oh, I look like I'm being a bit slow here, don't I? But hopefully it's okay where you are. So, hello, good evening. It's the 30th of June, so we've only just made it into June for the June Stitch Club. Danielle, hi, good evening to you. And as it's June, we thought we'd go in with a bit of summer hair accessories, and I've got the windows, the curtains shut because the weather outside is absolutely shocking. And because the clouds are going over, it's making everything flicker. So I've had to close the curtains. I don't think you can hear the sound of driving rain. But yeah, so it's definitely not the summeriest of evenings, let's just put it that way. But we're trying to embrace a bit of summer here in the sewing room. Maureen, hello, good evening. So I thought what we'd do, I wanted to take a look at some of the decorative edging stitches that you get on your sewing machines. And one of the things that I like doing, and in a previous life I actually did as a job, was hair accessories. And these stitches actually are fabulous for these kinds of things. So I made a little range, which my granddaughter tried to steal, and I told her she couldn't have them yet. So we're going to have a look, and maybe I'll show you how to make some of these little sort of accessories, because they're perfect for summer weddings or parties or things like that. And also, if you are having to do any little makes for sort of fundraisers and things like that, because sometimes you need, oh crikey, are you having thunderstorms? Yes, it's sorry, I'm throwing everything on the floor. Yes, it's been one of those days, hasn't it? Yesterday I actually got soaking wet 3 times. I had to change 3, even like my shoes were soaked through. So you can tell Wimbledon started, can't you? So anyway, we're going to have a little look at those stitches. I mean, we're making accessories tonight, but the main reason you would use these stitches, and I don't know if any of you follow me on Instagram, but I did post a picture of my wedding dress because as I was doing these stitches, it occurred to me that my mum made my wedding dress, and it was 1986, so it was, frilly, flouncy, in taffeta, I think. It was taffeta, and she did a double-edged hem. It was a double layered, an overlaid skirt. So let's just put it this way: there must have been about 20 miles of frills on this dress, and each of those frills had a scalloped edge, top and bottom, which she did on her sewing machine and trimmed up. And after I'd done about, I don't know, 3 inches or something, I was sitting there thinking, oh my goodness me, that really was a determined effort by my mum. So Valerie, all power to you for that, because luckily for you, the marriage lasted. So it's all good, isn't it? She probably would have been really cheesed off after all of that if it hadn't. But anyway, so the stitches that we're looking at, and I'll get my big book here, are these sorts of ones, the satin stitches that you get. And even if you have a basic model, actually, you would probably have this little crescent one here, which is the one that you use most to do that. I never know if it's scalloping or scalloping. One's a fish, isn't it, and one's a trim. But anyway, we'll go with scallops. We'll go with scallops, I think. But these satin stitches, because they're so close together, mean that you can actually trim up. So if you actually look at the edges on that one there, you can see that I've trimmed it around, but it means that they won't fray out. Okay, there will, depending on the fabric, there is a chance that it might fray, but I'll go through that because there are ways of dealing with that. So it's these stitches mainly that we're looking at. I'm on Betty, as she was named last month, the Atelier tonight, and she's got quite a few different satin. I think she's got a few more even than this. This is the book from the 5270. And I will also look at, there is another stitch that a lot of machines have, this one here, which is a scallop stitch, and I think a lot of people might not actually know exactly what that stitch is for, so we will also go through that one as well. I absolutely love that stitch, and in fact I've just cut out another shirt to make just in white, and I didn't do anything on this one because I thought it's quite a busy print, so it won't show, but on the white one I'm definitely going to do something a little bit fancier around the hem of that top, and maybe the sleeves, because I'm doing a nice sleeve on there as well. And when I do, I will post a picture of that so that you can see that in action. But rather than do a massive project like that tonight, I thought that accessories was probably the way to go. So who's just come in? Fliss, hello, good evening. So yeah, I imagine there's a few people watching Wimbledon if it's still going ahead. And I don't know if anyone got caught out last night with a sewing bee, actually. I know a few people did. I was sitting there thinking, why isn't it on? Why isn't it on? And then they announced that it was on BBC Two. So why don't we turn ourselves around? And well, that's a point, actually. I was going to say, they don't just have to be, I'm doing a few new hats for the grandchildren. So they don't just need to be on the hair accessories. You know, if you've got hats and things, or bags, if you've got straw bags, baskets, things like that, you know, these will equally work, or brooches. So as I say, they're a good scrap buster and a good way of looking at those stitches. So I'm going to turn you round. As usual, I can see the comments going up the side, so any questions, do ask. Here we go. Oh, you nearly got a look of the really messy section of the sewing room then, didn't you? Oh yeah, the sewing bee was great last night, wasn't it? I think they were just all so lovely. It was really difficult, wasn't it? And I never want anybody to be out of those competitions, because I think they just all, you can see people growing so much in how they, you know, what they learn when they're doing that, which I think is just lovely to see. Very, very inspiring as well. So let's get you in. So first thing I'm going to do, as per usual, I'm going to just run a couple of, I put a deeper colour in so you can see it. I've already managed, hang on, did I drop it down the back? I had my other foot ready, or did I put it away in a moment of tidiness? Oh, a second ago I had that. It's the clear foot, you know how it is, the clear feet. Go, oh, there we go. Because they're clear, you can't find them. So I'll put the F2 one on so it's open, so hopefully you can see what is going on. There we go, bendy stand. So I'm going to start looking at some of the stitches. Can I get this in behind the camera? And I'm going to do my usual thing. Look, I've already prepped some of them just by stitching them out and then writing the numbers on, because I think it's quite interesting when you do this exercise, because there was one stitch on here that looked quite unprepossessing, frankly, and when I actually stitched it out I thought, oh crikey, that's my absolute favourite. So the one I'm doing first, just going to get the book back so that you can see, is, as I say, this basic scallop stitch, and as I say, pretty much every machine will have that one on it. If you've only got one satin stitch, it's probably going to be that one. And this is the one my poor mother did, goodness knows how many miles of. Now, because it's a satin stitch, it's all going to be preset. But one thing I will say is when you're doing this as an edging on fabric, and I'll show you when we're actually on the fabric, I'm going to stop there because I've gone down a few. So this is what you get. The storage cases, oh crikey, I think they, do you know, they were in the, oh, hang on a sec. Oh. Diana, hello, welcome. Hang on a second, girls. I've just got to remove some stuff. Oh. Okay. Oh, they're very, very sorry about this, girls. I think if you're seeing this, it's deleted. Right, I think I've got them all. Okay. We don't want them, whoever they are. We don't want them, do we? So hopefully you didn't have them. I always get these, you know, you get these weird things come up, don't you? And I have 60 seconds to deal with it, and I always panic that I'm not going to deal with it. So if anybody did see it, I'm so sorry, but hopefully I got there in time. So this one here is, as I say, the one that you're going to see most likely. What I did want to say is if your machine has elongation, so there's quite a few models that do. I think the DKS models have them. So I'm just going to come over here and show you. It'll either be an E with a sort of an L around it. And when you go into that, you can times it. And can you see on here, there's a times by 1. And then I can do times by 2. And you can see the stitch getting longer. I think I've shown you this before, times by 3, times by 4. So I've now elongated that stitch, and I'm going to run that because I've actually used this on the flowers that I've done, because obviously that's going to take quite a long time to cut, and because I wanted them to be sort of more petal shaped, really. You can see how long this is. So this is 4 times, and this is just one of these scallops. So certainly if you were doing this on the bottom of a skirt, or you know, a frill or something like that, you might not want to go the full whammy of 4. It'll go up to 5, so it goes even longer. But certainly taking it longer makes that process a little bit less time consuming. And as I say, when you've got elongation, what it's doing, it's stretching out that stitch, but it's not stretching out the actual length of the stitch, so you don't get the gaps in. You've still got the same integrity of the stitch that you have on the regular length as you have on this longer length, okay? And that means that all of these stitches are going to do that as well. So the one that I was going to show you, and I would definitely recommend that you just go through your stitches and do exactly this, stitch them out just to see, because this one, number 18, which isn't on that machine. No, it's not. I don't know, the light's terrible over here at the moment. It's this one, and it looks like, you know, a little bit like a scallop, but not quite. And I sort of looked at that and thought, oh, okay, interesting. But when I actually stitched it out, it's actually a wave, not a scallop. It gives the impression of a wave more than a scallop. And actually, I've used this quite a lot. I'm going to stop now. Right. I know. So yeah, sorry about that, girls, but can you see how lovely that stitch is? Look at it. And like I say, you know, every time I'm on a new machine anyway, so I will discover things, because I always do. But I thought that was absolutely lovely. And in fact, I have used that quite a few times. I used it on this one. This is a little bit of Liberty print. And I used elongation. I only elongated it once. But look how lovely that looks. Such a pretty stitch, isn't it? And as I say, I looked at it and thought, nah, no, you know, nothing particularly special there, but it is well worth stitching them out, that's for sure. And actually this one here as well, this is actually this one, which is this kind of, you know, side on one. But what I've done is I've used my mirroring button, so I've done one way and then one the opposite way, which has given me this rather large zigzag. And I've used that, if I get all my bits over here, because I've already done one of those and trimmed it up. So I've used one of those, that one on here, so that I get a zigzag effect rather than the actual scalloping. I'm going to sit that one down there. So like I say, it's definitely worthwhile. Actually, I'm just tightening the stand up because that pinged a bit too much that time. So when you actually stitch out to do these flowers, I've cut the strips. They're 3 inches, these. It doesn't matter if they're not quite so wide, but what I have done, and I'll show you why, because there was a difference. This one here, I didn't use any Bonder web on. I just literally folded it in half and then did the stitching and then trimmed it up. And you can see, look, it is actually quite frayy, which isn't a big deal for what it's actually for, because this is just a hair clip. But if you want a better finish, and if you compare it with this one, what I've done here is I've actually Bonder webbed the two together. So on the strips, I have just put down the middle of the fabric, I've just put a narrow piece of Bonder web, taken the paper off, and then folded it in half and ironed it together. So what's actually happened is it's kind of stuck together, that folded edge, which number one, so can you see, number one, it's making it a little bit stiffer, but it's also going to help with the fraying as it goes along. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to change my thread to white for this one, and then we'll run. Did someone just ask? No, right, still all right on questions. So hopefully you're all now looking at your machines to see what stitches you've got on there. If there are any that you're sort of in doubt about, if you can describe them, then oh gosh, keep hiding everything today, don't I? There we go. So I've tried to match. I think you can either do an alternate colour, a coordinating colour, which I've done sort of on there, or you can actually match it to the fabric, and this has got white dots on it, so I shall go with white. Sorry, my voice is sounding funny because I'm having to peer under the machine to use the threader. There we go. It's taken me a while to get used to this because it's a different threader to both of the other machines that I've been working on. Right, there we go. So this is the pressed side that's got the Bonder web in. So I'm going to put that, and I'm going to use that wavy stitch, but like I said, I'm going to take it up to 3 times with the elongation, and I'm just taking the stitch length, I've just taken it down a bit, because on the 9mm I find that 0.35 gives you a really nice close satin stitch when you're doing this sort of thing. As with everything, run it, and if it's not running smoothly, then, you know, take it back up again. So I'm keeping the edge of the foot along the top here, because I don't want the stitching to get too close to the top, because what will happen is it will start to sort of pull it in like that. So better to give yourself a little bit of space. So if I stop there, because I have done one of these, so we don't have to watch the entire process, you'll be delighted to know. But look, can you see, by elongating that, I've just got this really nice wave going on, which will be perfect for what I want to do. The trimming up is the next big thing on these stitches, and I will say I'll come back out a bit actually. There we go. I tend to use big scissors for this rather than small scissors, because what I find easier, and I'm trimming close, but obviously not close enough because I don't want to catch that stitching. So as I go round, I find it much easier to use the bigger scissors and keep it kind of towards this end, so I can kind of move the fabric rather than the scissors, especially when you're on the much closer ones. So for example, if I was trimming up this one, if I start in here with this, I kind of hold the scissors in the same place but move the fabric and then just move it forward, but I'm keeping it at that back end of the scissors, which is always the kind of sharpest point, isn't it? So that you've got that nice edge. Hope that makes sense what I'm doing. But like I say, I tried it with a very tiny nail scissors, and actually I felt like the big scissors were actually much easier. So once you've then trimmed that up, then we're going to gather them in a minute to actually turn it into a rose. But before we do that, I want to show you the scallop stitch. Okay, so like I said, it looks quite unprepossessing, this one. It's literally that, and you think, okay, out of all the other stitches on there, this one doesn't look terribly thrilling, does it? However, let's stitch it out, and then I will show you what it actually does. Some of you may have even used this. I don't know if any of you have used this. So again, I'm going to have this side of my foot is running along there. Let me go back in, because this is actually normally under your quilt stitches. So if you're not sure if you've got it, have a little look under your quilt stitches and see. You'll have your serpentine stitch. It's not that one. It is literally just one. It's normally just one sort of backward C. Okay, so this one, because it's just a regular stitch, you haven't got any elongation on it, but what you do have is a choice on the width. The recommended width that is giving me on this machine is 5, but I want to take it all the way up to 9 because I want quite a deep scallop going on here. There we go. Okay, and back we are again, and off we go. So it just does this curve, And you'll notice I have folded this right side to right side this time. Okay, so we've done that, and I'm going to quickly trim up. And again, it's a tiny hem along here, and I think as I start to trim it, you'll probably get the idea of where this is going. Once you've trimmed the actual curve, who's just come in? Morella, hello. My mum had quite a top-end machine, actually. She did an awful lot of sewing, and she had one of the, I mean, it's 50 years old, but she had one that had quite a lot of embroidery stitches on. They used to come on cards, didn't they? Do you remember some of them had the stitches on cards? But hers was one of the first that was like a push button one. I was allowed to play with them sometimes, but not very often. So I've snipped also into each one of these as well. And then what you do is, and I tend to turn it and then just run my thumbnail around the seam so that it pops up like that. And here's one I've done earlier, because you're not going to have to watch that torture. But look at that, isn't that fabulous? And like I say, if you were doing that on a hem, it means that you can do quite a deep hem. So I would either do that, finish the back of the hem. So if we pretend that this is the back end of it, I would probably overlock, neaten off that so that that comes in, and then I could do a little blind hem finish so that it's not really seen on the front, but that's what you'd get on the front of your skirt, top, etc. Sleeve, like I say. And it would also look, if you do quilting, definitely look fabulous on a quilt if you put that inside and then brought your binding over on top of it. So if you were binding a quilt, you could put that actually inside around the edge of your quilt, or the outside. It doesn't actually matter, but I'm a big fan of rickrack actually in bindings on quilts and table runners and things, and you can't always find exactly the right colour, can you? Or you know, the right widths, etc., etc. So this is one way of actually being able to make exactly what you want in whatever colour or fabric you want. But like I say, that is beautiful, isn't it? Now, if you don't have that stitch, I'm sorry, but you know, it's something to aim for, isn't it, in your in the stitch arsenal. However, you're going to have to go old school and just make yourself, and I have done this in the past, make yourself a little cardboard thing. So I fold it into whatever size I want my actual scalloping to be, and then use anything that you find lying around in your room, just draw that. So you can do different sizes, etc. And then it means that you're going to have to follow that line. So I'd use something like a friction pen or something that's going to disappear. Follow that line exactly. But one thing I will say is take your stitch length down if you're doing it sort of, you know, by hand, so to speak. Take your stitch length down so that you can get really smooth curves, okay? Because this is a preset stitch, they've already thought about that. So they've actually adjusted it so every curve is super smooth. Because if you look very closely, you'll see that the stitch lengths are different at this section. So when it's actually doing the stitch, it's doing longer stitches here, shorter stitches here, and shorter stitches here as well, to actually make that sort of smooth transition. It's very clever, isn't it? Clever. Sometimes I am gobsmacked about the cleverness of these machines that we have these days. So that is the scallop, which, like I say, absolutely love that. And these roses, have all been made using that stitch. Okay, just to run on with that same thing to complete the process for this flower, actually, I'm going to now gather it. And while we're on the subject, if anyone does have the t-shirt setting and you haven't used this before, the t-shirt setting on this screen, so I'm talking, it will be the Atelier 7, 9, 14,000, 15,000. When it says gathering, what it's going to do is it's going to set everything up for me. So it's taken my tension down, because when you're gathering, you take your tension down to 1 so that it loosens it off so that you can pull it. And it's done all that for me. And it's also taken my stitch length up as well, because I want quite a long stitch. So it's done all that for me. But what I do need for gathering, and when you've got scissors and the scissor button and things like that on your machine, and also the easy set bobbin thing, remember you don't have the bobbin thread up on the top in the same way, but for processes like this you need that bobbin thread. So I'm just going to do needle up down so that I can grab my bobbin thread from underneath. I've got my top thread there, and then I'm going to take it to the side and just anchor it. Now this is something that came up at the last show we did, actually, because funnily enough, I think there were a couple of us that didn't realize this. And what was quite funny is that if you've got the wider thread cutter on the side of your machine, in case you didn't know, if you go to the back, it will cut the thread. If you go to the front, it just holds the thread in place. Okay, and that is brilliant for things like this, so that you're not going to get that knotting, that nesting at the front. Okay, so it's a really good, useful thing to know. So I'm going to run a quick row of gathering. I'm trying to remember is if I did 1 or 2 rows. If I'm doing a skirt or, you know, dressmaking, I always do 2 rows, but I can't. I might have been lazy on these flowers and just done 1. I get the feeling I'm probably, knowing me, I probably just did 1. So when you get to the end, I'm not going to use the scissors. I'm going to pull a long thread and take it out the back so that I'm ready to do, you know, because what I did was I did all of these, I did quite a few of them, did all the edging, then I did all the gathering. So once you then actually gather it all up, I'm pretty sure that you've done flowers of this ilk before, some of you. But it kind of almost starts turning itself into a flower, doesn't it? I normally turn over the very beginning bit and then wrap that round so that it's just a bit squishier in the front, and then kind of stretch that out as I roll it. So you don't need to gather it right to the end, because what you'll find is that you'll just kind of stretch them out a bit. But can you see as we go round? And what I tend to do, hang on, I've got one here, I start to just anchor those, and I, you know, it doesn't matter what your stitching looks like at this point, you just want to grab a few stitches in place to hold the rows together. If you're very nimble and very quick, you could probably do this process and then use a glue gun to have them all in place, but I think sometimes the needle and thread is a little bit easier, isn't it? But look, you can see it going around. And the last bit, let me just get those couple of threads, those last bits in. I will go back and make sure that it's all held together. What you kind of want to do, I don't know if you can see this on the underneath, each layer, try and lay it on slight over so that you're building up the layers rather than them all being squished together. So I'm just going to pull that one in. And then that very last bit, I'm not going to cut those very long gathering threads until I've actually stitched this all together. I know they're in the way, but that last bit, again, a bit like the beginning, I fold it down so that the rough edges, see that bit? I fold it down so the rough edges are all on this bottom part. And again, another couple of stitches. There we go. Okay, and like I say, you can then just sort of twiddle around with it, add a few more stitches if you need to, but that's your rows done. They are rather fun to do, and like I say, whether you use them on hair accessories, my granddaughter's 9 and she just took one look at these. I got these big clips because she's got a lot of hair, and she just went, oh, I like those, Nanny. She didn't like modeling them, but she, you know, she liked the idea of having flowers in her hair, that's for sure. But as I say, they'd also make quite nice little brooches or things like that, wouldn't they? Or to go onto bags and stuff. I think I'm pretty sure that you'll find a use for them. They're one of those things that a bit like Suffolk puffs and that, I end up with piles of stuff like this, and I normally put it in a box or a jar, and then at some point I'll be doing something and I'll suddenly think, I know what I could do. That needs a Suffolk puff, or that needs a something or other on the top. Cover buttons as well, look. So this, I'm going to show you this one now, because this one I've just done as a circle. So these work quite well if you just wanted to do some nice little doilies for your wine glasses or something, you know, if you live that kind of a wine glass existence. Definitely sleeves. Oh, the gathering foot. Yes, the gathering foot is great fun, Danielle, isn't it? That's for sure. I do like a gathering foot. I'm looking for, oh, here we go, a circle. Here's one. So this, again, I'm going to use something that's going to iron off, like my friction pen or something like that, because I want a circle to follow. Okay, so I'm going to go back to one of my satin stitches for this one. And certainly with this, now this is my favourite bit about having set the gathering. I'm now going to go back to my regular stitches, and it's changed it all back for me, because the one thing that I was constantly doing is if I take the tension down to gather, I then sew the rest of the skirt on and forget, and then realise that I've forgotten to take the tension back up. So I like the fact that this thinks for me and stops me doing that, because as I said, it was something that I did constantly. So I'm going to do this one, I think, this time, and I'm going to only do it by 2 because I'm going in a circle. I don't want it to be too long, because otherwise I think it's going to be a little bit difficult, isn't it, to go in. So I'm using my open toe foot here, but to be perfectly honest, actually I am going to change it, because I use that normally because you guys can see better what I'm doing. But I would normally, yeah, another clear foot, there we go. I would recommend, rather than the open toe, because you're going in a circle and because the nature of the stitch as well, this one, which is your regular satin stitch foot, can you see it has that little arrow, the red arrow, which means I'm going to line that arrow up on my circle I've just drawn and keep that lined up. Okay, so as we go round, that's what I'm actually watching. And with this, I'm pushing here to make it go round the circle. If you have one of those magnificent circular attachments, obviously you could use that for these flowers. Should have thought of that actually, shouldn't I? I haven't got one of those, but I could have got one. We'll do that another time. Don't worry, there's plenty of gadgets, plenty of feet, plenty of stitches. We'll never run out. Just need to keep coming up with the ideas. So I am just putting pressure on. I don't want to lift and turn. So hang on, there's a message. It is jumpy this week, isn't it? I don't know quite why. Because we've had a new box and line and Wi-Fi thing hub put in recently, which they assured us would sort any issues that we had, but it definitely feels a bit jumpier this month, doesn't it? So I'm hoping that when I play it back, if it's truly terrible, I might talk to them and see if we can just do it maybe as an actual video, which would be a better quality for this one. So I'm running all the way around. Now what you don't know when you're doing these sorts of stitches, unless you're going to be very technical and measure everything, is exactly where you're going to finish. But I have a feeling that we are going to finish, by the look of it. Look, one more. So I'm going to put my lock off. And we're pretty much, ooh, just very slightly over there. But that's fine. So we've finished there. So look, a little bit over, but do you know what? We'll live with that. Like I say, it's one of those things that unless you you measure exactly, but if you're going to do loads of these, then it's worth knowing, isn't it, what size that you've drawn round and what length of stitch. So like I say, I elongated that one twice. So I'm just going to move that back so that when I cut it out, I'm not going to cut my fingers off. And like I say, this will need ironing to get rid of the line that we've been following. Didn't go in quite as close as I should have done there. But again, can you see on this, I've got it towards the end of the scissors. And then coming up and round. Okay, so I think you get, I'll show you that side, because actually that's pretty on that side, isn't it? But look, you just get this really cute end there, don't you? And here's one I made earlier. So to turn this one into a flower, I'm just going to grab the needle back, because this is actually just easier to do with needle and thread than on the gathering I did on the machine on the long ones. So I'm just going to cut the center out of this, because this doesn't need to be gathered quite so much, and then I'll do a stitch around here and pull it up, and that just gathers it in enough. And as I say, I've used a cover button on there, or you can use a regular button. Cover buttons are brilliant actually, aren't they? Because it does mean that you can match it exactly. And of course, the joy of the cover button. If you've got things like the little heart stitch or some of those little stitches that you've got, you know, with elephants and flowers and things like that, you can just do one little stitch on the fabric before you then cover the button, just as a bit of an extra whammy on there. But as I say, you can do as many rows as you want. Or for those of you that are minded to, I'm going to bring you back to the front now, because we're nearly to the end, and I just this was what you very nearly ended up doing this month. It was going to be Barbie dresses, and then I decided that actually that was just getting too complicated. But can we just take a moment, because I was inspired by Ascot. So if you do have little girls or boys who are into dressing up, if you wanted to make one of these, okay, as you can see, glue gun has been seriously involved here. This is very Blue Peter. What you are going to need is bottle tops, and I favour the milk bottle top. Okay, I'm looking. Oh, there we go. I've covered mine in fabric. However, that one has been painted with nail varnish. So Blue Peter, told you. Okay, so obviously depending on the size of hat, I was going, because I thought Kate Middleton's hat was magnificent. The black and white I thought was lovely. But to hold it on, or if you wanted to do a fascinator, I really need to get out more. This is the bit from when you open, you know, a bottle of drink, you know, you open it and then you just get that little bit, and this makes the perfect Alice band for your Barbie. Okay, so you can decorate that Alice band, but like I say, these make the best hat brims. And then I even made the feather. Look, I even made the feather by just stitching, triple stitch down the middle, and then I frayed it out. I probably needed something that was very fine, but anyway. So if you're in the mood for making a whole set of Barbie hats, then carry on, because it took me quite a long time, but it was good fun. It was very good fun, actually. Unfortunately, the granddaughter is not quite into Barbies. She just looked a bit unimpressed for all my efforts, which I thought was a bit sad. So, like I say, just a couple of ideas of how to use those stitches and what to do with them. Or, as I say, just, you know, have a little play around and just have a look at them, and because as you do them, you'll start thinking of what you can do. I've put them on, like I say, hair clips, etc., and Alice bands, and I covered the Alice band as well before I put that one on, so it was all matching. So it's quite a good idea if you are going to weddings, and I know some of you might sort of be doing things like wedding dresses and bridesmaids dresses. So next month, gosh, July, yes. Now, keeping to the theme, I've been sitting here making little postcards and things for various projects, and one of the things that I quite like to do, which I thought would be quite good, so we've done this, we've already covered when we did the Easter bunnies. I did the leaf stitch, didn't I, and using twin threads and things like that. But this technique, again, if you've got feather stitches, leaf stitches, things like that, these little stuffed trees, this is quite a big one, actually. I thought I'd do a big one so you could see it better. But I will do a little project based around these, and it may well be, like I say, something a little bit smaller, so more like a postcard. And this got me going because if any of you have actually looked at it, there is a competition going on at the moment with Stacey from Artsy Craftsy on the Janome website, and you can, she shows you about free motion and doing postcards to the Queen, so do check that out. She's fantastic, and if you've never done free motion before, Stacey is your girl. But as I say, I've got a few things here. So this, for example, look, I've used them, and you can see I've used lots of different stitches here for these little stuffed trees. So I thought that might be quite a fun thing to do, again, to just go through some more of those stitches, and a bit of this technique chenilling as well, which is really quick. Maria, yeah, I haven't done a hat for the Action Man. I was going to do the dress on the hanger, but that I got sidetracked. That didn't quite work, and I thought that was getting complicated. So don't worry, that will happen at some point, but I just need to work on that one a little bit more, because I wasn't happy with it. So I went with the hair accessories for this particular thing. But don't worry, that's in my, as you know, I'm quite eclectic with the projects here, so you're not always going to get exactly what you see the month before, but you will get something. Don't worry. But sometimes things just morph, don't they? And I think that's how it happens, actually. I don't know about you, but if I'm in my sewing room, things just change. So if you've got any questions, if you're watching this on catch up and you've got any questions, put them in the comments, because I do check them and I will answer them. Okay, so I hope that was okay, and I hope that you're going to give some of those stitches a little try, and let's, fingers crossed, hope that the weather picks up, and I shall see you at the end of July. And if you're at the Festival of Quilts, give me a wave, because we'll be there with lots of lovely machines for you to try. Okay, take care. Bye.